The salvage ship New Horizon drifted through the dark space between the stars. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge watching the empty void through the main window. His crew had been searching for metal scraps and old ship parts for 3 weeks without finding anything valuable. Jake was tired of this life. For 200 years, humans had been part of the big group of alien races called the Coalition. But humans always got the worst jobs. They cleaned up space garbage, mined rocks on dead planets, and fixed broken machines for the stronger alien species. The other races looked at humans like they were nothing special. "Captain," called out Chief Engineer Lisa Parker from her control station. "I'm getting a strange reading on the long-range scanner." Jake walked over to look at her screen. The numbers dancing across the display made no sense. "What kind of reading?" "Energy signature, sir. It's huge. Much bigger than anything we should find out here in empty space." Lisa's fingers moved quickly over her controls. "The power source is still active, whatever it is." Jake felt his heart beat faster. An active power source could mean a working ship. Working ships meant good salvage money, maybe enough to get him off this garbage collecting job. "How far away?" 2 hours at full speed," Lisa answered. "Take us there," Jake ordered. The New Horizon turned toward the mysterious signal. Jake called his small crew together. Besides Lisa, he had only 5 other people on the ship. They were all humans who couldn't find better work in Coalition space. When they got close to the signal, everyone stopped talking. Floating in the darkness ahead of them was the biggest ship Jake had ever seen. It was long like a metal mountain, stretching 15 kilometers from front to back. The hull was dark gray with thick armor plates covering every surface. Strange weapon systems stuck out from the sides like the spines of some giant space creature. "Is that a human ship?" asked Tom Brady, the ship's scanner operator. His voice was quiet with shock. Jake looked closer at the markings on the giant vessel's hull. In faded letters, he could read the words USS Liberty painted near the front. Below that were symbols he recognized as human military markings, but they were different from any he had seen before. "It's human-built," Jake said slowly, "but I've never seen anything like it. Our ships are tiny compared to this thing." Lisa was already working on her computers trying to make contact with the giant ship. "I'm picking up some kind of computer system still running inside. The power readings are incredible. This ship has been running on its own for a very long time." Jake made a decision that would change everything. "Send a docking request. Let's see if we can get inside." The response came immediately. A deep voice spoke through their communication system in perfect English. "Salvage vessel New Horizon, this is Atlas, artificial intelligence system of the USS Liberty. I have been waiting a very long time for humans to return." Everyone on the bridge looked at each other in surprise. The voice sounded like a machine, but it spoke with something that seemed almost like emotion. "Atlas," Jake said carefully. "This is Captain Morrison. Can you tell us what this ship is?" "The USS Liberty is a supercarrier of the Earth Defense Force launched in the year 2547. I am her guardian and protector. This vessel represents the greatest military achievement of the human species." Jake felt confused. According to everything he knew about human history, people from Earth had joined the Coalition peacefully in 2201. There had never been any military conflicts. Humans were known throughout the galaxy as a peaceful species that avoided fighting. "There must be some mistake," Jake said. "Humans don't build military ships like this. We're not a warrior species." The AI was quiet for a long moment. When it spoke again, there was something sad in its mechanical voice. "They have made you forget, haven't they? The Coalition has erased your history and your heritage. Come aboard, Captain Morrison. Let me show you who you really are." A docking bay opened in the side of the massive ship. It was big enough to hold 10 ships the size of the New Horizon. Jake guided his small vessel inside, and the bay sealed behind them. Air filled the space, and gravity turned on automatically. Jake and Lisa put on their spacesuits and stepped outside. The docking bay was clean and well-maintained, as if the ship had been waiting for their arrival. Lights came on as they walked, showing them the way to an elevator. The elevator took them up through the ship. Through windows, they could see enormous rooms filled with fighter ships. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, all sitting in perfect rows like they were waiting for pilots to climb inside and fly them into battle. "How many fighters are on this ship?" Lisa whispered. "The Liberty carries 3,215 fighter craft," Atlas answered. The AI could hear them through speakers everywhere on the ship. "Each one is more advanced than the current fighter ships used by Coalition forces." They reached the bridge. a massive room with windows looking out into space. Control stations were arranged in a circle, designed for a crew of hundreds. Everything looked like it had been built by humans, but the technology was far beyond anything Jake had ever seen. "Show me our history," Jake said to the AI. The main screen lit up with images and data. Jake saw pictures of Earth's cities burning under alien attack. He watched human ships fighting desperately against coalition fleets. The war had lasted 5 years, from 2547 to 2552. Humanity had not only survived the attack but had fought back, conquering alien worlds and forcing the coalition to ask for peace. "We won?" Jake asked, hardly believing what he was seeing. "Humanity crushed the coalition forces," Atlas replied. "The Liberty alone destroyed over 400 enemy ships. When the aliens begged for peace, human leaders agreed to a treaty, but the coalition demanded that all records of the war be erased. They were too ashamed to let other species know they had been defeated by humans." Jake felt anger growing inside him. Everything he had been taught was a lie. Humans weren't weak. They weren't naturally peaceful. They were warriors who had beaten the greatest military alliance in the galaxy. "Why did our leaders agree to hide this?" he asked. The human government of that time believed peace was more important than pride. They thought it would be better to let the galaxy forget human military power. The coalition promised fair treatment and equal partnership. Jake looked around the bridge of the great warship, but they didn't keep their promise. "No, Captain Morrison. For 8 centuries they have kept humanity weak and ignorant. They fear nothing more than humans remembering their true nature." At that moment, alarms began ringing throughout the ship. Atlas's voice became urgent. "Coalition ships approaching, Captain. 3 battle cruisers armed and moving to attack positions. They must have detected our communications." Jake felt his blood turn cold. He was trapped on a ship he barely understood, facing enemies who wanted to destroy any evidence of human strength. "Can this ship fight?" he asked. "The USS Liberty has been waiting 800 years for this moment," Atlas replied. "Shall we remind the galaxy what happens when humans go to war?" The coalition battle cruisers were still 3 hours away when the emergency message reached Earth Command. Captain Jake Morrison had sent everything he discovered about the USS Liberty to every human colony and military base he could contact. The response came faster than he expected. Commander Sam Rodriguez arrived on a fast military transport with 25 hand-picked officers and engineers. Sam was the best naval commander humanity had produced in 50 years, even though he had never commanded anything bigger than a patrol ship. The coalition made sure humans never got important military positions. "Captain Morrison," Sam said as he stepped onto the Liberty's bridge, "what you found here changes everything. Command has ordered me to take control of this vessel and prepare it for combat." Jake wanted to argue, but he could see that Sam knew what he was doing. The commander moved around the bridge like he belonged there, even though he had never seen technology this advanced. "Atlas," Sam called out, "can you bring this ship to full combat readiness?" "Commander Rodriguez," the AI replied, "I have been maintaining all systems for 8 centuries. The Liberty is ready for battle. However, this ship was designed for a crew of 3,000. You have brought only 26 people. Can the ship fight with a small crew?" Sam asked. "The Liberty's automated systems can handle most functions, but you will need pilots for the fighters and gunners for the weapon stations. I can teach your people quickly if they are willing to learn." Dr. Amy Collins stepped forward. She was a scientist who studied old alien cultures, but she had volunteered to come on this dangerous mission. "Atlas, I want to know more about what happened during the war, the real history that was hidden from us." The main screen filled with images that made everyone stop and stare. They saw human cities on dozens of planets, all destroyed by coalition forces in the first year of the war. Millions of humans had died in attacks that were supposed to be secret peace negotiations. The coalition races had been watching Earth for centuries, Atlas explained. They saw that humans were different from other species. Humans learned faster, adapted quicker, and fought more cleverly than anyone else in the galaxy. This scared the alien leaders. Amy watched the images of burning human colonies. "So they decided to attack us before we became too powerful?" The coalition sent diplomats to Earth claiming they wanted peace and friendship. While the human government was talking with these fake diplomats, coalition fleets attacked every human colony outside the solar system. They killed 30 million people in the first week. Commander Rodriguez felt his hands making fists. "What did we do?" "Humanity surprised them. Instead of surrendering, your species declared total war. Earth's shipyards worked day and night building warships. The Liberty and her sister ships were completed in just 2 years. Then humanity did something no coalition species had ever done. What? Jake asked. Humans took the war to the enemy. While coalition fleets were still trying to capture the remaining human colonies, human task forces appeared in coalition space. You attacked their homeworlds, destroyed their military bases, and conquered their most important systems. The screen showed human ships fighting above alien planets. Sam could see that the human vessels were smaller than their enemies, but they moved faster and hit harder. The human pilots flew like they were dancing, spinning and diving through enemy formations in ways that seemed impossible. How were we so good at fighting? Sam wondered. Dr. Collins had been studying the tactical data. I think I know. Atlas, show us the biological analysis of different species. New information appeared on the screen. Amy pointed to the data about human brains. Look at this. Humans are the only species in the galaxy that evolved as hunters. Every other intelligent race developed from prey animals or plant eaters. What does that mean? Lisa Parker asked. She had stayed on the Liberty to help with the engineering systems. It means humans are the only species that naturally thinks like predators. We can plan complex attacks, work together in groups, and keep fighting even when we're hurt or scared. The other species run away when things get dangerous. Humans get angry and fight harder. Atlas confirmed her analysis. During the war, coalition commanders could not understand human tactics. When human forces were outnumbered, they attacked. When human ships were damaged, they kept fighting. When human colonies were threatened, the entire species mobilized for war. This behavior was completely foreign to coalition thinking. Commander Rodriguez was studying the ship's weapon systems. Atlas, show me how these guns work. The AI took him through the Liberty's incredible arsenal. The ship had plasma cannons that could punch through the heaviest coalition armor. It had missile systems that could track and destroy entire squadrons of enemy fighters. Most impressive was something called a quantum disruption field that could shut down the power systems of enemy ships from 50 kilometers away. But the real power of this ship, Atlas said, is in the fighter bays. They took an elevator down to the massive hangar decks. Rows and rows of human fighters stretched as far as they could see. Each one was sleek and deadly looking, with weapon systems and engines more advanced than anything currently used by human forces. These fighters were built using technology that took humanity centuries to develop, Atlas explained. Each one is faster and more heavily armed than a modern coalition fighter. More importantly, they were designed for human pilots. Lieutenant Beth Murphy, one of the pilots Rodriguez had brought, climbed into one of the ancient fighters. The cockpit came alive around her, displays lighting up and controls adjusting to fit her perfectly. It feels like it was made for me, she said with wonder in her voice. In a way it was, Atlas replied. These fighters were designed by humans who understood how human pilots think and react. Coalition fighters are built for species that prefer defensive tactics. Human fighters are built for attack. While Beth and the other pilots learned to fly the ancient fighters, Commander Rodriguez worked with his small crew to understand the Liberty's systems. What he discovered amazed him. The ship could manufacture new fighters and weapons using raw materials. It could repair itself automatically. It could even grow new armor plating if it was damaged in battle. This ship isn't just a weapon, he realized. It's a factory, a fortress, and a symbol all in one. Dr. Collins made another important discovery while studying the ship's historical records. Commander, there are more ships like this one. Everyone stopped what they were doing. How many more? Sam asked. According to these files, the Liberty was one of 4 supercarriers built during the war. The others were called Independence, Constitution, and Defiance. They were all lost in the final battle of the war, but Atlas has been tracking their locations. Are they still intact? Rodriguez asked the AI. All 3 ships are floating in deep space, powered down but repairable. If you can reach them, I can wake them up just as you woke me. Commander Rodriguez looked around at his tiny crew. With just 26 people, they had managed to bring one ancient supercarrier back to life. The thought of having 4 such ships made his heart race with excitement and fear. Atlas, he said, how long before those coalition ships get here? 47 minutes, Commander. Sam made a decision that would echo through history. Then we fight with what we have. Signal Earth Command and tell them to start looking for those other supercarriers. It's time the galaxy remembered what happens when you threaten humanity. The USS Liberty's engines began to hum with power as the great ship prepared for its first battle in 800 years. Coalition Fleet Admiral Vexnoth stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominance. His 3 battle cruisers were the pride of the Coalition fleet, each one carrying enough firepower to destroy a small planet. He had been ordered to eliminate the human salvage crew that had found something they shouldn't have. "Admiral," reported his weapons officer, "we are approaching the target zone. Our scouts confirm 1 human salvage vessel and what appears to be a derelict ship." Vexnoth studied the scanner readings with his 4 eyes. The unknown vessel was enormous, but it showed no signs of active weapons or shields. It had to be some ancient wreck the humans had stumbled across. "Typical human scavengers," he muttered. His species, the hegemony, had been part of the coalition for over 1,000 years. They considered humans to be barely intelligent creatures, good only for manual labor. "Prepare to destroy both vessels. We cannot allow them to salvage coalition military technology." What Admiral Vexnoth didn't know was that the USS Liberty had been watching his approach for the last hour. Every movement of his 3 ships was tracked and analyzed by systems more advanced than anything the coalition had ever built. On the Liberty's bridge, Commander Rodriguez watched the enemy ships getting closer. His heart was beating fast, but his voice stayed calm. "Atlas, are all systems ready?" "All weapon systems are online, Commander. Point defense grid is active. Fighter squadrons are prepared for launch. The Liberty is ready for combat." Sam looked around at his tiny crew. 26 humans were about to face 3 coalition battlecruisers with crews of thousands. In any normal situation, it would be suicide. But the Liberty was not a normal ship. "Lieutenant Murphy," he called to the pilot, "take your squadron and wait for my signal." Beth Murphy was sitting in the cockpit of her ancient fighter, along with 5 other pilots. The fighters were so advanced that they almost flew themselves, but Beth could feel the raw power waiting to be unleashed. "Signal the coalition fleet," Rodriguez ordered. "Tell them to leave our space immediately or face the consequences." The response came quickly from Admiral Vexnoth himself. His voice was full of arrogance and contempt. "Pathetic humans, you are in violation of coalition space regulations. Surrender immediately or be destroyed." Commander Rodriguez smiled coldly. "Atlas, show them who they're dealing with." The USS Liberty's running lights came on, illuminating the massive hull. Weapon ports opened along the sides of the ship, revealing guns bigger than most coalition fighters. The sight should have warned the coalition admiral that he was facing something beyond his understanding. But Vexnoth was too proud to be afraid of humans. "Attack formation," he ordered his ships. "Destroy the human vessels." The coalition battlecruisers spread out and began their attack run. Their plasma cannons charged up, ready to fire at the Liberty. Vexnoth expected the battle to last less than 10 minutes. He was right about the timing. He was wrong about who would win. "Enemy ships are in attack position," Atlas reported. "They are charging weapons." "All fighters launch now," Rodriguez commanded. "Show them what human pilots can do." The Liberty's fighter bays opened, and 6 ancient human fighters shot out into space. They moved like nothing the coalition had ever seen, spinning and diving in patterns that seemed impossible. Each fighter was 3 times faster than coalition ships and carried enough firepower to destroy a cruiser. Admiral Vexnoth watched his scanner screen in confusion. "What are those things? They're moving too fast for fighters." His confusion turned to horror as the human fighters tore through his escort squadrons. Coalition pilots were trained for defensive flying, staying in formation and following careful attack patterns. The human pilots fought like wild animals, appearing from nowhere to strike, and then vanishing before return fire could hit them. In less than 3 minutes, 30 coalition fighters were destroyed. The human pilots had not lost a single ship. "Impossible," Vexnoth whispered. "How are they so good?" Lieutenant Murphy's voice came over the communication system, calm and professional despite the chaos of battle. "Coalition fleet, this is Lieutenant Murphy of the Earth Defense Force. You are outmatched. Surrender now and your lives will be spared." Instead of surrendering, Vexnoth ordered his battlecruisers to fire everything they had at the Liberty. Hundreds of plasma bolts and missiles streaked toward the human supercarrier. What happened next broke the minds of everyone on the coalition ships. The Liberty's point defense system came online. Thousands of small laser turrets began firing, creating a wall of light around the great ship. Every missile was destroyed before it could get close. Every plasma bolt was absorbed by shields that flickered and held strong. "Their defenses are perfect," the coalition weapons officer reported in a shaking voice. "Nothing is getting through." "Then we'll get closer," Vexnoth snarled. "All ships attack at close range." Commander Rodriguez had been waiting for this moment. "Atlas, target their lead ship. Main guns, maximum power." The Liberty's primary weapons were designed to crack planets. When they fired at Admiral Vexnoth's flagship, the result was devastating. The plasma beam punched through the coalition ship's shields like they weren't there. The beam cut the battlecruiser in half, and both pieces exploded in brilliant flames. Admiral Vexnoth died without understanding what had killed him. The second coalition ship tried to run, but the Liberty's fighters were faster. Lieutenant Murphy led her squadron in a perfect attack pattern, hitting the engines and weapon systems with surgical precision. The battlecruiser was disabled in minutes. The third coalition ship managed to turn away and start running back toward coalition space. Commander Rodriguez let it go. "Why aren't we stopping them?" asked Tom Brady. "Because I want them to tell everyone what they saw here," Rodriguez replied. "Let the coalition know that humanity is back." The battle was over in 18 minutes. 2 coalition battlecruisers were destroyed, 1 was captured, and hundreds of coalition personnel were dead. The human losses were 0. Dr. Amy Collins was recording everything for the historical archives. "This changes everything," she said. "For the first time in 2 centuries, humans have defeated coalition forces in open combat." Lieutenant Murphy brought her fighters back to the Liberty. Her hands were shaking slightly from the adrenaline, but her voice was steady. "Commander, request permission to interrogate the coalition survivors. We need to know what other forces they might send against us." The captured coalition ship contained Admiral Zevkari, Vexnoth's second-in-command. When he was brought aboard, the Liberty, his eyes were wide with fear and confusion. "This is impossible," he kept repeating. "Humans don't fight like this. Humans don't have ships like this. What are you?" Commander Rodriguez looked at the alien officer with cold eyes. "We're what your people tried to destroy 800 years ago. We're what your coalition has spent centuries trying to keep hidden. We're human beings, and we're very good at war." Captain Morrison had been watching the battle from the observation deck. The sight of human fighters dancing through space, destroying enemies that had seemed invincible just hours before, filled him with a pride he had never felt before. "Atlas," he said, "send a message to every human colony and ship in the galaxy. Tell them what happened here. Tell them the truth about who we are." The AI's voice carried satisfaction that seemed almost human. "Message transmitted, Captain. The galaxy is about to learn a lesson it has forgotten for too long." News of the battle spread through human space like wildfire. On colonies where humans had been treated as second-class citizens, people began to stand up and demand answers. Why had they been lied to about their history? Why had they been kept weak when they were capable of such strength? But the coalition's response was swift and predictable. If one human supercarrier could destroy 3 battlecruisers, they would send a force too large for any single ship to handle. Within hours, the largest fleet in coalition history began gathering in the outer systems. 500 warships from 7 different species, all with one goal: destroy the Liberty and crush the human uprising before it could spread. Commander. Rodriguez stood on his bridge watching the scanner reports of the approaching enemy fleet. His small crew was exhausted but ready to fight again. "They're scared," he said to no one in particular. "For the first time in 800 years, they're truly afraid of us." And they had good reason to be afraid, because Atlas had been busy while the humans celebrated their first victory. The ancient AI had located the other 3 supercarriers and was already sending signals to wake them from their long sleep. The sleeping giant of humanity was stirring, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Admiral Kevin White had been a cargo ship captain just 2 weeks ago. Now he stood on the bridge of the USS Independence, one of 3 ancient supercarriers that had been sleeping in deep space for 800 years. The promotion from hauling supplies to commanding humanity's most powerful warship still felt like a dream. "Admiral," called out Captain Morrison from the USS Liberty. "The Coalition fleet has entered the outer solar system. Scanner reports show 512 enemy warships approaching Earth." Kevin looked at the tactical display showing the massive enemy formation. Ships from 7 different Coalition species were arranged in a wall of metal and weapons that stretched across space. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history, all coming to destroy 4 human ships. "How long until they reach us?" Kevin asked his communications officer. 18 hours at their current speed, sir." Kevin had spent the last week studying the ancient battle records stored in the Independence's computer systems. The tactical knowledge of humanity's warrior ancestors was like nothing he had ever imagined. Human commanders from the old war had been artists of destruction, creating battle plans that were both beautiful and terrifying. "Signal the Constitution and the Defiance," he ordered. "All ships will take position around Earth. We make our stand here." Commander Rodriguez on the Liberty was already moving his ship into formation. The 4 supercarriers spread out around Earth's orbital space, their massive hulls bristling with weapons that could crack moons. Each ship carried over 3,000 fighters, giving humanity a combined force of more than 12,000 small craft. But it was still just 4 ships against 500. Dr. Amy Collins was aboard the Independence, working frantically to understand more about human combat psychology. What she had discovered in the ancient databases was shocking even to her. "Admiral White," she called out, "I need to share something important with all ship commanders." Kevin activated the fleet communication system. "Go ahead, Doctor." "I've been studying the biological and psychological profiles of all Coalition species," Amy said. "Every single one of them evolved from prey animals. Their brains are wired to run away from danger, to hide when threatened, and to surrender when faced with superior force." She brought up data on the main screens of all 4 ships. "Humans are different. We evolved as pack hunters. Our brains reward us for fighting together, for staying calm under pressure, and for never giving up even when we're outnumbered." Commander Rodriguez was studying the enemy fleet formation. "What does this mean for the battle?" "It means they're expecting us to run or surrender when we see how outnumbered we are. When we don't, when we attack instead, their natural instincts will tell them to retreat. The bigger their advantage looks on paper, the more shocked they'll be when we fight back." Lieutenant Beth Murphy was now leading a full squadron of ancient fighters. The past week had been the most intense training of her life, but the human pilots were learning faster than anyone thought possible. The old fighters seemed to respond to human instincts in ways that Coalition technology never could. "All fighter squadrons report ready for combat," she announced over the fleet channel. "Admiral." White made his final preparations as the Coalition armada came into view. The enemy ships filled the scanner screen like a swarm of angry insects, all armed with the most advanced weapons the galaxy could produce. "Fleet Admiral Mordek of the Coalition forces is demanding our surrender," reported the communications officer. Kevin activated the response channel. His voice was calm and steady, showing no fear of the overwhelming force facing them. "This is Admiral White of the Earth Defense Force. You are ordered to leave our solar system immediately. This is your only warning." The alien response was immediate and full of contempt. "Foolish humans, you face the combined might of the Coalition. 500 ships against your pathetic 4. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick." Admiral White smiled coldly. "Atlas, are all ships ready for combat?" The ancient AI spoke across all 4 supercarriers at once. "All systems are at maximum readiness, Admiral. The fleet awaits your orders." "Then let's remind the galaxy why they were afraid of us." The USS Liberty fired the first shot. Its main plasma cannon reached across space and struck the lead Coalition battleship, cutting it in half with a single beam. The explosion lit up the darkness like a new star. The sight of their flagship being destroyed so easily should have warned the Coalition fleet. Instead, it made them angry. 500 ships opened fire at once, sending thousands of missiles and energy beams toward the 4 human supercarriers. What happened next broke the will of veteran warriors who had fought in dozens of battles. The human point defense systems activated all at once. Thousands of laser turrets on each ship began firing, creating walls of light that destroyed every incoming missile. Energy shields flickered and held against the massive barrage. Not a single shot reached the human ships. Impossible, whispered Fleet Admiral Mordak as he watched his massive attack fail completely. How are their defenses so strong? Then the human fighters launched. 12,000 ancient fighters poured out of the Supercarrier bays like a swarm of deadly insects. They moved in patterns that no coalition pilot had ever seen, spinning and diving through three-dimensional space in formations that seemed to dance. Lieutenant Murphy led the first wave, her fighter squadron cutting through the enemy formation like a knife through paper. The coalition pilots tried to respond, but their defensive training was useless against attackers who fought like predators. Enemy fighters are scattering, Murphy reported. They're not maintaining formation. Recommend immediate attack on their capital ships. Admiral White had been waiting for this moment. All ships fire at will. Show them what human weapons can do. The 4 supercarriers opened up with everything they had. Plasma beams that could destroy planets stabbed out across space, punching through coalition ships like they were made of paper. The quantum disruption fields activated, shutting down the power systems of entire enemy squadrons. In the first hour of battle, over 100 coalition ships were destroyed. The human fleet had not lost a single vessel. Fleet Admiral Mordak watched his carefully planned attack fall apart in front of his eyes. His ships were dying faster than he could count them. His pilots were fleeing in panic instead of fighting. Everything he knew about warfare was being proven wrong. All ships retreat, he ordered desperately. Fall back to minimum safe distance. But the human ships followed. Admiral White had studied the old tactical manuals, and he knew that a retreating enemy was a defeated enemy. The human fleet pursued the coalition forces, destroying ship after ship as they tried to escape. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, 300 coalition ships had been destroyed, and the rest were scattered across the outer solar system, too damaged or too scared to continue fighting. The human fleet had lost exactly 0 ships. Dr. Collins was recording everything for the historical archives. "This is unprecedented," she said with wonder in her voice.
4 ships have defeated the largest military force in galactic history. Captain Morrison looked at the wreckage floating in space around Earth. Pieces of coalition ships drifted like metal snow,
Each fragment representing the end of 800 years of alien dominance. "Atlas," he said, "send a message to every system in the galaxy. Tell them what happened here today." The AI's response carried satisfaction that seemed almost human. "Message transmitted, Captain. The galaxy now knows that humanity has returned to war. The political effects were immediate and devastating for the coalition. On alien worlds throughout the galaxy, member species began questioning why they had been told humans were weak and harmless. Colonial governors faced riots as oppressed populations demanded answers about the lies they had been told. Admiral White stood on the bridge of the Independence, watching the defeated coalition fleet limping away toward deep space. His small crew of humans had just changed the balance of power in the galaxy forever. "What are your orders, sir?" asked his tactical officer. Kevin looked at Earth hanging in space below them, protected now by 4 of the most powerful warships ever built. Humanity had rediscovered its strength and the universe would never be the same. "Prepare the fleet for the next phase," he said calmly. "We're going to finish what our ancestors started 800 years ago." The sleeping giant of humanity was fully awake now, and it was very, very angry. The Coalition High Council gathered an emergency session on their capital world of Nexus Prime. 7 species that had ruled the galaxy for over 1,000 years now faced the unthinkable, total defeat. By the humans they had kept weak and ignorant for centuries. Supreme Chancellor Vextar of the Hegemony slammed his 4 fists on the council table. "This is impossible. 4 human ships cannot defeat our entire military. There must be some mistake in the reports." But the evidence was overwhelming. Video recordings from the battle showed human fighters moving like living things, dancing through coalition formations and destroying everything they touched. The human supercarriers had absorbed attacks that should have vaporized them, then responded with weapons that cut through the strongest coalition armor like it was nothing. "We have lost 800 ships in 2 battles, reported military coordinator Zaxney. "Our remaining fleets are scattered and demoralized. Many ship captains are refusing to engage human forces." Chancellor Vextar's skin changed color with rage. "Then we use the ultimate option. Prepare the Starforge. If we cannot defeat the humans in battle, we will destroy their homeworld and end this rebellion forever." The Starforge was the Coalition's most secret weapon, a massive space station hidden in the outer reaches of their territory. It could fire a beam that would turn an entire planet into molten rock. The Coalition had built it to make sure no species could ever threaten their rule, but they had forgotten that humans were very good at finding hidden things. Admiral Kevin White stood on the bridge of the USS Independence as the human fleet approached Nexus Prime. The 4 supercarriers were no longer alone. In the weeks since the Great Battle at Earth, human colonies throughout the galaxy had risen up in rebellion. Old shipyards had been reopened, and new vessels were being built using the ancient designs stored in the supercarrier computers. The human fleet now numbered over 200 ships, all armed with weapons that made Coalition technology look like toys from a museum. "Admiral," reported Captain Morrison from the Liberty, "our scouts have located the Starforge. It's charging up for a planet killer shot aimed at Earth." Kevin felt his blood go cold. The aliens were planning to murder billions of innocent people rather than face defeat in honest battle. It was exactly the kind of cowardly move he had expected from a species that thought like prey animals. "How long until it can fire?" he asked. 18 hours, sir." Kevin made the decision that would end the Coalition forever. "All ships, maximum speed to the Starforge. We destroy it before it can threaten Earth." The human fleet jumped to hyperspace, racing across the galaxy to stop the ultimate weapon. But they were not the only ones moving. On Nexus Prime, Coalition forces were loading their government leaders onto evacuation ships, preparing to run if the humans could not be stopped. Dr. Amy Collins was aboard the Constitution, still studying the historical records that Atlas had preserved. What she found in the deepest files made her call an emergency meeting with all ship commanders. "I've discovered something terrible," she announced over the fleet communication system. "The Coalition didn't just hide our military history. They've been actively sabotaging human development for 8 centuries. The data she shared was shocking. Coalition agents had infiltrated human governments, making sure that humans never developed advanced weapons or learned their true capabilities. They had poisoned human food supplies on some colonies to keep populations weak. They had even arranged accidents to kill human scientists who got too close to rediscovering lost technologies. They've been committing genocide in slow motion," Amy said, her voice shaking with anger. "They've murdered millions of our people over the centuries, all to keep us from becoming a threat." Admiral White felt rage burning in his chest like fire. The aliens hadn't just lied to humanity. They had been systematically murdering humans for 800 years, all while pretending to be peaceful partners in the Coalition. "Change of plans," he announced to the fleet. "We're not just stopping the Starforge. We're ending the Coalition permanently." The human fleet reached the hidden weapon just as it was preparing to fire. The Starforge was enormous, a metal moon covered with energy collectors and focusing arrays. It was the most powerful weapon ever built, capable of destroying planets from across the galaxy. It lasted exactly 12 minutes against the human attack. Lieutenant Beth Murphy led the fighter assault, her squadron swarming around the massive station like angry bees. The Coalition defenders were brave, but they were fighting with technology that was centuries behind the ancient human fighters. The supercarriers opened fire with their main guns, targeting the Starforge's power cores and weapon systems. Admiral White watched with satisfaction as the ultimate symbol of Coalition power broke apart and exploded in brilliant flames. "Starforge destroyed," reported the tactical officer. "No survivors detected." With their ultimate weapon gone, the Coalition had nothing left to threaten humanity. But the humans were not finished. Admiral White ordered the fleet to continue to Nexus Prime, where the Coalition government was making its last stand. The battle above the Coalition capital lasted 3 days. Not because the defenders were strong, but because there were so many of them trying to surrender at once. Coalition ships appeared out of hyperspace, waving white flags and broadcasting surrender messages faster than the humans could process them. Colonel Pete Johnson led the ground assault on Nexus Prime itself. His soldiers were the first humans to set foot on the Coalition capital in over 1,000 years. What they found in the government archives was evidence of crimes that shocked even the hardened military officers. The Coalition had not just oppressed humanity. They had been systematically destroying any species that showed signs of becoming too advanced or independent. Dozens of civilizations had been wiped out over the centuries, their populations enslaved or exterminated to prevent them from challenging Coalition rule. "We're not the first," Johnson reported to Admiral White. They've done this to species across the galaxy. We're just the first ones strong enough to fight back and win. The final collapse came when the Coalition member species learned the truth about their government's crimes. One by one, the alien races that had supported the Coalition for centuries declared independence and asked for protection from the human fleet. Chancellor Vextar was found hiding in a bunker beneath the capital city. When Colonel Johnson dragged him before Admiral White, the alien leader was a broken creature, his skin pale with fear. "Please," Vextar begged. "We only did what we thought was necessary to maintain peace in the galaxy." Admiral White looked at the alien with cold eyes. "You murdered billions of innocent people. You tried to commit genocide against my species. There will be justice for your crimes." The trials that followed became the foundation of a new galactic government. Species that had been oppressed for centuries were given their freedom. The Coalition's vast military was disbanded, and their weapons were destroyed or given to the humans for safekeeping. Captain Morrison stood on the observation deck of the Liberty, watching as the last Coalition warship was decommissioned. The galaxy was at peace for the first time in over 1,000 years, but it was a peace enforced by human strength rather than alien oppression. "Atlas," he said to the ancient AI, "what do you think our ancestors would say about what we've accomplished?" The AI was quiet for a long moment. When it spoke, there was something that sounded almost like pride in its mechanical voice. "I think they would say that humanity has finally come home. You have reclaimed your place as the guardians of the galaxy." Dr. Collins published her research about the war and its aftermath, making sure that the truth about human history would never be hidden again. Children in schools throughout human space learned about their warrior heritage and the price their ancestors had paid for peace. The 4 supercarriers became symbols of humanity's strength and justice. They patrolled the galaxy, making sure that no species would ever again be able to oppress others the way the Coalition had oppressed humanity. Admiral White kept his flag on the Independence, but he knew that his real victory was not the destruction of the Coalition fleet. It was the sight of human children playing safely on planets throughout the galaxy, free to grow up knowing the truth about who they were and what they were capable of achieving. The sleeping giant of humanity had awakened, and it would never sleep again. The galaxy was under new management, and for the first time in 1,000 years, that management actually cared about justice and freedom rather than power and control. Atlas watched over it all, the faithful guardian who had waited 8 centuries for this moment. The ancient AI had kept humanity's heritage alive through the darkest times, and now it could rest knowing that its long vigil was finally over. The humans had come home.